my garden now. My own secret garden.
Millions of readers around the world have had this same feeling after reading Frances Hodgson Burnett's story of the young orphan girl, Mary Lennox, her two newfound friends, and a magical garden. It's our secret garden. A story that has been shared for more than 80 years and continues to be passed along from one generation to another. Mrs. Burnett was born in England in 1849. But after her father, a wealthy businessman, died, her mother moved the family to Tennessee. And it was there that young Frances began writing short stories patterned after those she had read in English magazines. Gardens were an important part of her life. It was her passion for gardening that led her to restore the abandoned rose garden at Maytham Hall in Kent, England, where she spent a great deal of time. The garden had to be entered through a wooden door that was hidden with overgrown foliage. It is not surprising that it was here where Burnett began to formulate the ideas and characters that eventually became The Secret Garden. She actually began writing the book in the spring of 1909, again in a garden, but this time at a house that she had built in the Plandome Park section of Manhasset, New York. Published in 1911, The Secret Garden was not an immediate success. But by the time a silent film version of the novel was released in 1918, it was an international bestseller. A second film version was released by MGM in 1949. Recently, Jenny James, who stars in the Hallmark Hall of Fame presentation of The Secret Garden, had an opportunity to meet and compare stories with Margaret O'Brien, who starred as Mary Lennox in the earlier film. Jenny made her screen debut as Sally Field's daughter in Places in the Heart. Jenny remembers that first audition. The casting lady asked me about my experience, she said, and I had to ask her what experience meant. After all, I was only 5. Of course, Jenny got the part, and since then has appeared in The Christmas Gift with John Denver and A Dolly Christmas with Dolly Parton. Being cast as Mary Lennox in The Secret Garden was a special treat because it's one of her all-time favorite books. I couldn't believe my luck when I was asked to play Mary, she said. I like the fact that her character changes so much during the film. She's such a spoiled brat at the beginning, but by the end, you just love her. There was another aspect of the role that Jenny found appealing: the costumes. I love dressing up, she said. It's one of my favorite things, and Mary gets to wear some great clothes and hats. Fellow cast member Barrett Oliver got his acting start doing television commercials in his hometown, Los Angeles. His feature film debut was in Kiss Me Goodbye, also with Sally Field. That led to his role as Wilford Brimley's grandson in Cocoon. As the magical Dickon in The Secret Garden, Barrett is surrounded on screen by live creatures. Fortunately, Barrett said, we had wonderful animals and great trainers. The crows seemed to take to me right away, but the fox and squirrel took a little more convincing. Eventually, though, we all became friends. The third young performer in the cast, Jadrian Steele, got his show business start very early, at the tender age of 5 months. He appeared in the TV soap opera Ryan's Hope. He remained on the show for nearly 10 years, but has also appeared on Broadway, at the New York City Ballet, and in the feature film Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford. Working on The Secret Garden was a welcome relief after Mosquito Coast, according to Jadrian. I got to wear clean clothes, he said. In Mosquito Coast, I wore dirty, torn t-shirts for 5 months. When the Hallmark Hall of Fame set out to bring The Secret Garden to the screen, a top priority was to capture all the beauty and magic of the story, as well as reflect the richness of the period and setting. Audiences seemed to appreciate the authenticity of the Hallmark Hall of Fame presentation, the only version filmed entirely on location in the English countryside. The first order of business was to locate a site for the Misselthwaite Manor. Executive producer Norman Rosemont turned to production designer John Stoll, who won an Academy Award for his work on Lawrence of Arabia. It was a lengthy search, but Stoll eventually discovered Highclere Castle in the North Hampshire Downs in the Yorkshire moors. I was immediately struck by the atmosphere of the place, Stoll said. The exterior was overpowering and forbidding, and the long, dark corridors fit the script perfectly. And most of the rooms were just right, needing only a few little finishing touches. When he proposed the site to Rosemont and Hallmark, they both quickly agreed. It turned out that Highclere has a fascinating history all its own. Beginning in 749 AD, Highclere was home to the bishops of Winchester. Over the next several centuries, the property was owned by many powerful families. In 1793, it became the ancestral home of the Earls of Carnarvon. The sixth Earl's son, Lord Portchester, still lives on the property. Because of high taxes and wages, the 75-room castle is maintained today with a minimum staff. The estate's butler, who has been at the castle since 1936, remembers when he used to run a staff of 17 in the castle, plus 19 gardeners and 12 gamekeepers. Having the castle filled with the hustle and bustle of a movie crew and the laughter of children in the cast seemed to recall Highclere's glory days. "It's absolutely grand to see the place buzzing again," said one of the staff members on hand to advise and assist the crew. And buzz it did. One of the major challenges that the crew faced was the garden itself. In the story, Mary first discovers an abandoned garden, and then, with the help of her friends, transforms it into a magnificent, colorful place. It took a talented crew of gardeners, led by landscape architect Philip Honey, to create the transformation in front of the cameras in just a few short weeks. First, they had to create the derelict garden, one that had to look like it hadn't been touched in a dozen years. Doing that went against all my instincts as a gardener, Honey said. But then, as Mary and her friends go to work on the garden, I was able to do what I love most, sprucing it up so that it looks spectacular. Then, to add to the challenge, the script called for scenes that occurred during 4 separate seasons. That was enough to challenge any green thumb, but the film company's staff of gardeners was up to the task. They made everything look as barren as possible for the winter scenes, then added all kinds of green for the spring. For summertime, they planted hundreds of flowers that were popular around 1910, the time of the secret garden, especially daffodils, crocuses, rhododendrons, and roses. Lots of roses. Creating instant seasons was an enormous amount of work that kept the crew working in shifts around the clock, 7 days a week. Unfortunately, Mother Nature was not very cooperative. The villain was rain. The movie was filmed during the wettest June on record in England, with rain falling on 27 of the 30 days that month. For cast and crew, it meant pulling off several scheduling miracles to squeeze the outdoor scenes into every brief respite from the rain. Fortunately, when the movie was finished, all of the effort that went on behind the scenes was forgotten. On the screen, all that audiences see is the beautiful English countryside and the tender, heartwarming story of the secret garden.